spoke to you this morning, spoke about the fact that the move had come in the overnight session. You would have caught a hint of me being a little bit biased towards the short side in oil. Okay. And I'm going to show you how this played out against me today pretty much. Now, because I was pretty much looking for short side trades, I wasn't really interested at all in this initial segment. Okay, where I did become interested was in and around the A and B print, and I'll show you why in a minute on the footprint chart. Okay, since then we can see that the oil has held that break of the weekly high at 61.86. It's extended, come back, tested once, tested twice, tested 3 times. Now, I'm going to teach you a lesson through my lesson, okay, which is don't have a bias, okay, but I'm going to show you another lesson, which is that a lot of the time when I take a loss, okay, it's fine to take losses, it's fine to take on trade ideas, but don't lose the information that you've paid for, okay, and I've paid for some very valuable information in the oil today, and that's what I'm going to share with you. Okay, so in order to understand this information, you're going to need to understand the footprint chart. And I'm going to show you what happened not once, twice, but 3 times today before the market catapulted higher. Okay, so in order to do that, you've got to come to around 2 o'clock this afternoon. So the first time the market came down here, we can see there was a real lack of commitment in the zone 61.90 to 61.95. Okay, bear in mind last week's high was 86s, so it was the area just ahead of the breakout of last week's high. So we can see we came in and we tested it once. Lack of commitment, very low volume, no delta shift, and no selling pressure coming in. Okay, the sellers were not interested. We got an engulfing 5-minute print and the market rotated higher. We then came down a second time. This is where it became interesting. Okay, this is where I was entering shorts. Right, we could see a very high pickup in volume. All right, and at that point, before this candle closed, we actually got quite a big shift in the delta. So we had quite a negative delta, but notice what happened at the end outcome of this candle. Not only did we have an extremely big range, not only did we have extremely high volume, not only did we have extremely high delta, positive delta. Okay, in effect, we had a very large absorption at the low. Okay, notice these 4 prices. We traded over 1,400 contracts in this little 3-price, 4-price range. Okay, and that was the real key. We call that absorption or pocket positioning. Now, we then came down and tested it a second time. Notice what happened the second time. Volume picked up. Notice what the delta did. Delta went negative. Volume picked up quite aggressively. So we extended on that pocket positioning. What did the market do? Again, we had further pocket positioning. So another 3,000 contracts got traded between 90 and 95. Market turned back higher again. Okay, so you guys are getting the hint of what's happening here. Not just once we had absorption a second time. And then a third time the market came down to the 95s. And again, we had some very, very aggressive pocket positioning. We can see that between 97s and 99s. Another 1,200 contracts absorbed before the market catapulted higher. Okay, now the key takeaway there is it was very obviously a buyer there. Okay, it was obvious if you didn't have a position. It was obvious if you didn't have a bias. It wasn't so obvious to me because I kept trying to short for the break. Okay, I kept trying to short for the unwind of the delta and the unwind of the short-term positioning. Looking back on the charts, I can see that there was a very, very aggressive buyer down there. Now, that for me doesn't necessarily suggest the market's bullish, but what it does suggest, and that's why these big fat blue lines are here, right? If we get back to that 61.90 to 95, I will be looking for an aggressive short position through there. Why? Because there's now long positioning in the market at this price point, 61, 90, and 95. Okay, and that's the lesson, guys. Don't be afraid to, when you pay for information, just make sure you use that information. Okay, and we saw that oil then catapult higher, very high volume, made a new high on the day. Okay, so that's the oil. Let's just quickly look briefly at the technical landscape then of the oil. We can see obviously in terms of the range 2 weeks ago, we're now smack bang in the middle of those single prints. What I would expect to see, given we failed to re-enter that range from Friday, I'd expect either tonight or first thing tomorrow, probably another extension higher, just again pushing in towards that range from 2 weeks back. Okay,